everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, American English eTeacher webinar, MOOC Camps, Best Practices for Engaging Teachers in Online Professional Development. We're so happy to see you here today, and we're looking forward to learning and sharing with you. My name is Kate, and I will be your host and facilitator today. Let's start with these great photos featuring MOOC camps in the Philippines and Turkey. We love to see teachers learning and sharing ideas related to the American English eTeacher program and our massive open online courses. So please share your photos by emailing them to the email address listed here, mooc@fhi360.org, or tag us on social media at American English for Educators or using the hashtag American English. We may feature one of your photos on the American English website. So here's a little bit about what to expect during today's session. Our session will be about 60 minutes long and, as you know, is related to the topic of MOOC camps and how you can best plan for and implement a great MOOC camp in your region. The presenter will present the material, and I, as your host, will ask questions and make comments as well. But we really hope to hear from you, our audience, so that we can address your ideas and experiences. So please do share your thoughts and comments in the featured chat box, as many of you are already doing. We'd love to see your name and your country as we're doing this intro now. So please share, and we will continue the discussion moving forward. So, as many of you may know, we have a MOOC that is coming up, Teaching English to Young Learners, and we would be happy for you to register to participate in this facilitated MOOC today. So the orientation begins on April 8th and the course begins on April 15th. This course is designed to introduce you to the theory and practice of teaching English to young learners ages 3 to 10 years old. You will explore approaches for teaching English that are not only effective but also fun and engaging for children. Through weekly participation in this MOOC, you will gain new ideas for teaching listening, speaking, reading, and writing in a meaningful context. So please check out the URL there and go to Facilitated MOOCs and register today for the Teaching English to Young Learners Massive Open Online course. You may also want to share this with participants who may join you in the MOOC camp that you will facilitate after today's webinar. We have another opportunity for you to be engaged in online learning as well, and this is our Teaching Grammar Communicatively self-paced MOOC. So this MOOC is open right now, and it opened on March 25th all the way through June 17th. And this MOOC will provide an opportunity for you to take the online course at your own pace without the facilitation from an instructor. In this practice-oriented course, participants will explore how to adapt grammar instruction to meet their students' needs. And you'll also focus on integrating grammar instruction with teaching language skills and learn about task-based grammar language and the evaluation of different error correction strategies. So take a look at this link here, and we'd be happy for you to join this as well, or to facilitate a MOOC camp with this facilitated MOOC. So in the previous slide, we talked about the Teaching English for Young Learners MOOCs. That one opens and closes at a specific time and has more facilitation online from an instructor. And that's our 5-week course. The orientation to get you situated begins April 8th, and then you can begin the course on April 15th, I believe. This one is open all the way from now through June 17th, and you can go as quickly through this MOOC as you would like to, or as slowly. And so can the participants in your MOOC camp. So yeah, we really encourage you to sign up for one or both of these incredible opportunities. If you want to take the Young Learners one now and then do the grammar one later, that's of course a great option because you have plenty of time, or you can just choose to do one. So we are looking forward to seeing you there in our MOOCs as well. And now for today's session, MOOC camps, best practices for engaging teachers in online professional development. During this session, we will discuss useful tips for structuring the in-person discussions and activities that will help participants in your region engage more thoroughly with MOOC content and learning. Today, you can expect to learn more about best practices and components of MOOC Camp facilitation, planning for and organizing your MOOC Camp, and ensuring that MOOC Camp participants get the most out of the course and their involvement in your group. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today, Jimalee Sowell. Jimalee is a PhD candidate in Composition and Applied Linguistics at Indiana University at Pennsylvania. A former English language fellow and specialist, she has worked as a teacher and teacher trainer in a variety of countries and contexts. Her interests include teaching writing, teacher training, and teaching with MOOCs. Welcome, Jimalee. We're so happy to have you here today.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here with all of you. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone who is with us today. I am happy to have this opportunity to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is MOOCs and MOOC camps. And during the session, we really want to welcome your participation as well. It's really great to get your ideas and your experiences. So as we know, 1 hour is never enough time for this kind of session. So let's go ahead and get started.
Sounds good.
All right, so on our agenda today, basically we would like to talk about what is a MOOC and what is a MOOC camp. We know that some of you have experience already with MOOCs, but we also understand that some of you are new to MOOCs and MOOC camps. So we want to go over those and what we mean by those things. We're also going to talk about facilitated sessions. We're going to give you some different ideas about what you can do for your facilitated sessions. We're going to talk about how you can plan your MOOC camp. And of course, we're going to talk about what you're going to do at the end of the MOOC camp. So we have a lot of great content for you. So let's go ahead and go on to the next part.
Sounds good.
So here's the first question. I'm sure some of you can answer this. What is a MOOC?
All right, we'd love to hear from you. What is a MOOC? How would you define it? You can tell us what the letters and the acronyms stand for, and then maybe some other characteristics of a MOOC as well. That you would use to describe a MOOC. So very good. Dawn says massive open online course. Xavier, Jesselyn. We have lots of people saying massive open online course. You are absolutely correct. Very good. What do you think are some characteristics, or how would you describe a massive open online course? What are some other phrases or words that you would use to describe it? Let's see, Rodrigo says it's open all over the world. It supports distance learning from Abdul. Let's see, 24/7 learning, very good. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, these courses are available. Anyone can join the course from Xavier. Designed for all from Rena. Easily accessible. Learning at your own pace. Excellent. Wonderful responses, everybody. Thanks for sharing. So what do you think, Jimalee?
I think they have some really great ideas. And the first answers were absolutely correct. They are massive open online courses. So by massive, we mean that they are open to anyone. I think a few of you mentioned this, that they're open to people around the world. They are, as many people who want to enroll can. They are open in the sense that also they're open to anyone who wants to enroll for a MOOC. And of course, you understand online course. A few other details about MOOCs we would like to mention are that they usually last from 4 to 6 weeks. Of course, Kate just told you about a MOOC that is self-paced and it lasts much longer, 3 months. But a lot of them are around 4 to 6 weeks. And they usually require about 4 to 6 hours per week to complete all the tasks, but that will range from MOOC to MOOC and from learner to learner. They have a variety of learning components, but usually they have some sort of videos, reading materials, and discussion platforms. And like any class, you must have some sort of assessment. So generally their assessments relate to quizzes and tests, but sometimes there are other sorts of assignments they will ask you to do. And some of the good news is that if you complete everything successfully, which means that you complete a certain amount of the work to a certain level, then you will be the proud owner of a certificate at the end.
Very good. And I think a lot of MOOCs, including our eTeacher MOOCs, are also issuing digital badges. Is that correct, Jimalee?
Yes, that is. That is.
So a digital badge is sort of like an electronic certificate, but it's connected with metadata or data that's in the link to that digital badge that you can share on your electronic CV or your LinkedIn pages or things like that to show your employers and your colleagues your achievement electronically, and that way you never will lose that wonderful piece of paper, but it will always exist electronically. So yeah.
Right. It makes it much easier to keep up with what you've done and to showcase it to the rest of the world as well.
Definitely.
All right, great. So we have some wonderful American English MOOCs. And as you can see on this slide, there is a link that can tell you in more detail about these MOOCs, but I think Kate has a few things she wants to mention.
Yeah, on the next slide, you can see these MOOCs, and these ones were designed for learners. So the other MOOCs that we'll talk about and that we were advertised at the beginning of this webinar were for teachers, and these MOOCs are more designed for learners or students in your classroom who might be interested in business and entrepreneurship, career development, science, technology, engineering, and math, journalism, or media literacy. But of course, teachers are going to be interested in these topics as well. So you could organize a MOOC camp for teachers or students on these, using these MOOCs. But just know that these were sort of more designed with a learner in mind in the classroom rather than a teacher, as our other MOOCs are.
Right, exactly. But they really are open for everyone. And I can say that personally, I've learned a lot from doing them myself. So they're good for teachers, they're good for learners, they're good for people who are working on professional developments. All of those sorts of people could be potential participants for these MOOCs.
Wonderful.
All right, then. So we have some American English MOOCs that are specifically for teachers.
Yeah,
And I know that some of you have probably taken some of those MOOCs. So can you tell us what American English for Teachers MOOCs have you taken or facilitated?
Great. It looks like Jessel took the media literacy course that was mentioned just before. Great. What other MOOCs have you taken for teachers or for learners? Media literacy and content-based instruction, Jessel. That's great. Sana took the professional development for teacher trainers. Excellent. Erica took teaching English for young learners. Zafa took content-based instruction and teaching grammar communicatively. Excellent. And Xavier took professional development for teacher trainers. Great. And I'm sure others of you have taken some. And Angela, oh, great. So this will be your first one. So once you register for the teaching English to young learners or the grammar one, this will be your first. That's great. Welcome. Wonderful. So lots of people who have taken MOOCs, been facilitators for MOOCs like Rodrigo, or who are new to taking MOOCs. Great to see you all here.
Absolutely. And so here are the teacher MOOCs that we have. And again, you have the link where you can get more information about all these MOOCs. So please sign up.
Yes, definitely. Like I mentioned earlier. And you can see that the top two are self-paced. Teaching grammar communicatively is open now, and critical thinking will be open later. We just wrapped up our facilitated content-based instruction MOOC, and now, as we mentioned, we'll be starting our facilitated TEYL, Teaching English to Young Learners. All right, let's go into what is a MOOC camp.
All right, that's a great question. And I see that some people say that they are going to be facilitating their first MOOC camp coming soon. So we want to go ahead and ask you, what do you think we mean by MOOC camp? What is it?
Very good. So what do you think, everyone? How would you describe a MOOC camp? What are some characteristics or words that you would use to define it? If you have, let's see, Rena says face-to-face meetings. Excellent. You can see there on the screen, and also the photo here gives us a clue. Let's see, learning as a group, blended learning. Good one from Angela. Let's see, collaborative. Great, one person is saying a virtual campus, and that's true. The Massive Open online course itself is virtual, but often our MOOC camps are places where people come together face-to-face to talk about that online learning. What do you think, Jimalee? What do you think of these responses?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have the idea. It's sort of, I really like the idea of saying that it's a blend. Because we want to use the MOOC content, but we want to give the opportunities for the people taking the MOOC to come together and to work on the MOOC or talk about the MOOC or talk about topics related to the MOOC in a face-to-face environment. So basically, it's the blended learning. It's something that you can do at any location. We want to have it open to the public. In other words, anyone, just like the open online courses, anyone who wants to take it should be able to be a part of a MOOC camp. However, having said that, sometimes some MOOCs will have a target audience. So a MOOC on teaching or a MOOC on teaching English will necessarily be for teachers of English. And some other MOOCs might have also some sort of specific audience that they're meant for.
Great. Let's see, Abdul says, in a MOOC camp, you deliver and apply what you learn from the MOOC or from the course through group projects and activities. Very nice definition. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, definitely. That is one way to work with the MOOC camp. And as we go on with the webinar, we're going to give you some more ideas because we want these MOOC camps to be as inclusive to as many people as possible.
Great. MOOC camps are basically places for us to meet in person about online learning, right? And we want to have those meetings to be like a session or a facilitated session. So what do you think Jimalee means here, participants, with this term facilitated session? Let's see. Erica says the participants share takeaways. It's a guided session. Very good. What else? Yeah, Gabriella said a guided session. Abdul says you support the session that is online. Encouraging others from Erica. Very good. What do you think, Jimalee?
Yeah, I think those are all great answers. I even like the one that says I have no idea because sometimes I really don't know. But the basic idea is that people can come together with a facilitator and other people who are enrolled in the MOOC, and they can go over the contents of the MOOC together. So in other words, the MOOCs are used for the basis of interactive sessions that are face-to-face. Yes, you're sharing knowledge and you're supporting each other, you're helping each other.
Yeah, so one person, the facilitator, might have some ideas in mind about what they want to discuss, but they're not just the only main top leader. They're more guiding the participants through the discussion and activities. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. The facilitators don't have to think of themselves as, strict, mean teachers. They're there more to support and guide the people who are working through the MOOC.
Sounds good.
All right, then what do we mean when we say that MOOC camps are important? Why are we doing this? What is the purpose of a MOOC camp? Because we all know that everyone can do the MOOCs online in the free time whenever they like. So why would we decide to have MOOC camps?
Great. What do you think, everyone? What's the purpose of a MOOC camp? Why do we want to create them and implement them? What do you think? Let's see. Bruno says we can draw from more experienced people. Great. Rita says we can share ideas. Noreen says we can have collaboration. Xavier says to support learners. Great. So maybe there are different levels of learners. So there might be more advanced learners or more beginner learners, and we can really help support them through a MOOC camp. Learning from each other, exploring learning and promoting learning. Great, from Abdul. Noshin says to help each other and discuss. And PR Paulo says there might be a better exchange when you're face-to-face. All right, great. Wonderful ideas, everybody. Is this about what you were thinking too, Jimalee?
It is, absolutely. You know, sometimes it is hard to just study with a computer. It can get a little bit lonely no matter how great the course is. So when we come together with the MOOCs, we can support each other and people can help each other with any difficulties they have with the technology or the content, or they can just share ideas like what did they get from the MOOC? How is the MOOC going to help them? How can they apply that MOOC in their lives? So this is the idea. The MOOC the MOOC Camp is a great support for the MOOC itself. All right, then a facilitator has an important role, but what do you think that we would expect from a MOOC Camp facilitator? What are their roles? What are their responsibilities?
Great. So yeah, another question for you guys. As the facilitator of your MOOC Camp, what kind of activities are you going to do, or what types of things should the facilitator do? And also wanted to say that this wonderful photo here is from a MOOC Camp with participants from Turkey. So if this is you in this image, please let us know. We're so happy to have you here. So what is the role of the facilitator? Let's see. Miguel says to support and guide. Selchuk says that they should probably be maybe experienced. Maybe they've taken a MOOC before. Bruno says be there on time. Let's see. Zafar says try to make things accessible for participants. Great comment. Hava Kurt says to scaffold learning. Wonderful, excellent responsibilities for the role of the facilitator. What do you think, Jimalee?
Yeah, I think those are all really great ideas. And I think, you know, the idea of scaffolding is important because sometimes some aspects of the MOOC might be very new to the learners, or in some cases, they might have some difficulty with the language itself. And the facilitator can help sort of scaffold their learning and guide them. So some of you already said this, but organizing and scheduling the MOOC camp sessions is part of the job of the facilitator. And the facilitator also prepares the facilitated sessions. Another thing that's also important is that the facilitator is there to encourage the participants. Some of them you might find might be a little bit afraid of the MOOC for different reasons. They might be afraid that the content's going to be too difficult, or they're afraid that they'll have difficulties with the technology. So the facilitator is really there as a guide and a supporter to help them with all of these things that might come up and to make sure that they can get through that MOOC and that they can enjoy and have a good learning experience. All right, then, who do you think can be a MOOC camp facilitator?
Yeah, what type of person maybe, or what role could be a MOOC camp facilitator? Who do you think? Let's see. A participant of a MOOC. Good, yeah, that's exactly right. So someone who's doing the MOOC right then, from Abdul. Rita says an experienced professional. Great. Who else could be a MOOC camp facilitator? What are some other sort of roles or types of people that would be good at facilitating a MOOC? TESOL alumni, very good. So maybe someone who's taken a course before. eTeacher alumni, that sounds great. Yes, excellent idea from Rena. Bruno says people with good command of the language, excellent. And Hava Kurt says a person who has good organization and time management skills. Very, very good. I think some of these ideas are the same ones that you had in mind, right, Jimalee?
Absolutely, they are. So here we have a list of some different people who might become facilitators. They are teachers, community leaders, sometimes university students, volunteers, conversation club leaders. There's no really strict qualification, absolutely, that you need. A lot of you mentioned that if you already have experience as a learner in a MOOC, it's very useful, and this is true, but it's not an absolute requirement. If you're an experienced teacher, it could be useful also. Again, not an absolute requirement. In short, many people can actually be a MOOC camp facilitator. Let's take a look at the next slide, and we can see we have a question here. what do you think are some of the most important attributes of a facilitator? What do they need? Well, some of you already mentioned this, that they need to be organized and good at time management, but they also need to have the time in their schedule to really be able to carry out a MOOC camp. Another thing that was mentioned was about language skills. So yes, it's really important that they have the language skills to be able to carry out the MOOC in the language of delivery. A good thing too is to have some basic familiarity with the internet and computers. You don't have to be a technology expert, but being able to know how to navigate a MOOC is important so that you can help the learners that are there. And if you have previous experience with MOOCs or MOOC camps, that's also really great because it will tell you, you'll know how the MOOCs run, but it's not an absolute requirement.
Great, yeah, and Rena says that they should have good leadership skills as well. Excellent point.
Yes, yes. I mean, usually facilitators, typically they have good leadership skills and they're able to get people enthusiastic. They're able to manage a crowd of people and direct them towards certain learning goals. So yes, that's also a good quality. Thank you.
Great.
All right, then. All right, here's another idea that we would like to share with you. This is about co-facilitating. So what do we mean by co-facilitating?
Yeah, what would you, if we could go back, what would you define as co-facilitating? How would you maybe define it? We were talking about the characteristics of one facilitator, but what about co-facilitating? Very good. Abdul says 2 or more people working together. 2 people are facilitating. Bruno says it might be more fun than only one person being responsible for the group. Very good. Excellent. What are some ideas related to co-facilitating, Jimalee, and how have you found, what are some examples for how it can be successful for us?
I think that's actually a really good point, that it can actually be more fun and less sort of a burden for one person if you share the tasks of being a facilitator. So you might, I think you already mentioned it, you might have 2 people, you might have 3, you might have a team of 5. It just depends on your contacts and your situation. It can really be helpful if you have more than one person, especially with large groups. However, when you're organizing your facilitation, you really want to think about who has what role. So in the case where Kate and I, for instance, are going to facilitate together, one of us will take the role of main facilitator and the other one will be a support facilitator, at least for that one session. Now, we might change roles over the course of the MOOC camp, but for each session, we want to be clear about who is going to be doing what.
Sounds good. I believe on the next slide, we have a question for all of you. What are some best practices that you think would be good for co-facilitating, or what are some advantages for co-facilitating, in your opinion? Abdul says teamwork is a best practice. Great. Oh, Samina says that co-facilitators could help with large groups, which is a great point, because if you have a huge group of people participating in your MOOC camps, it would be really nice to have another person there who can help assist with different learners. Let's see. Noreen says you can share the responsibility. Jessel says, no one is an island. Having a pair of teammates can help organize the MOOC camp. Excellent idea. You can have a good sounding board from Angela. And there are more opportunities for collaboration and cooperation. Excellent. Great ideas, everybody.
Yeah, I really like it. And you're right. No one is an island, and often we can get better ideas and we can be better at our jobs when we work with other people.
Definitely.
All right, then. So you've decided that you're going to facilitate a MOOC camp. So what are you going to think about in your planning stages? What do you need to plan for?
What do you think, everyone? What are some things that you're going to take into account when you're planning for your MOOC camp? Audience and purpose. Very well said, Abdul. Schedule. The place. Very good. Where are you going to have it? The content. You might want to go through the MOOC beforehand from Bruno. That might be part of your planning process. You want to think about your target audience, venue, and time from Noreen. And Rodrigo says you might want to think about the different group work activities you're going to share. Great. What do you think, Jimalee?
Absolutely. These are great ideas. And I think that they've already seen this webinar, some of them, because I have the same answers. So yes, you want to organize your schedule. You want to identify the audience and their needs. You need to find a venue. And you also need to get word out about your MOOC camp. And then, of course, you want to launch your MOOC camp. And I just wanted to add, somebody said something about actually seeing the course before you do the MOOC camp. And this is a really, really good idea, of course. As we all know, as facilitators or teachers, it's really good to be familiar with the content of what you're planning to work with the materials. But you might need to think about the fact that it's a lot to do all at once. I mean, you may not be able to do the entire MOOC in a day. So you have to think about how you can sort of like schedule that. And if you can only do it week by week, that's also okay. It just really depends on your schedule and your context.
That's a great point, Jimalee. And I think that's one that we can remember when we're doing a MOOC camp. We are facilitators. And so that means that we're facilitating a discussion, not that we have all of the correct answers. So definitely we can learn a lot from the other people in our MOOC camp as well. Even if we don't get a chance to see all of the MOOC content beforehand, we can at least walk through the MOOC with our participants and learn and share that way as well. Great point.
Absolutely. We're all in it together.
Definitely.
All right, now we want to share with you some ideas about how you could potentially organize your MOOC camp, sort of depending on your particular situation. So we want to talk about ways of coordinating and presenting a MOOC camp. We have a few different ideas for you. The first one, in this situation, in this scenario, the facilitator would go and sign up for the MOOC, and then they would download all the contents of that MOOC. And then in the MOOC camp, they will deliver that to the participants. Now, this is one way to organize, but there are others. In the next scenario, the facilitator and the participants will meet regularly for the facilitated sessions, maybe once a week or so. And then during those sessions, the facilitators and the participants will go over some of the contents of the MOOC, but they may not have time to go over everything that's in the actual MOOC. Another scenario that we might choose to do is when the facilitator will offer minimal direction. And in this scenario, the facilitator and the participants will only meet maybe 2 times. They might meet for the orientation, when the facilitator will give guidance about how to sign up for the MOOC and some of the basic aspects of the MOOC that the participants will need to know. And then the participants go and they work on their own. Later at the end, the facilitator and all the participants come back together. And for the ones who have finished the MOOC, they will have some sort of a graduation and maybe a celebration. Now, we're curious to know your opinion. From these 3 different choices, which one do you think is ideal? Which one would be most helpful for the participants?
Great. So what do you think? So we have the first option, where the facilitator delivers all the content to the participants. Maybe they download the MOOC packet and give it to the participants, and probably do the most work in terms of teaching and leading through the MOOC. The second one, where the participants do a lot of the MOOC on their own at home and then meet together for the facilitated sessions. And then the third one, with just a few times that you're going to meet for orientation and graduation, and everyone does the MOOC on their own. Let's see, it says a couple of people like Bruno said that it depends on the context. And a lot of people are writing 2. It looks like a lot of people think 2 is the best choice, maybe for their context. And Noreen says, I think all are viable, which I think we would definitely agree. It depends on your context. But yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people who think possibly option 2 might be best. What do you think, Jimalee?
All right, so I think I would agree. Like, two is the ideal situation when the facilitator and the participants can meet regularly over the course of the MOOC camp. However, sometimes we realize that the world is not always ideal and we need to adjust. So, for number one, for instance, this might be a situation in which you have a hard time getting access to the internet, or your participants have difficulty with internet access or other kinds of technology. So this could be a way to still have the MOOC camps in a place where you don't have much internet access. And number three, this could work too if people are very busy and they don't have time to come together for the facilitated sessions, but they still want a little bit of support with the MOOC. However, usually this is going to work best if your participants have the internet access and they are very self-motivated and disciplined. So it really depends on your context and your situation. You can adapt it to what's going to be best for you. But number two really is the most ideal situation.
Great. And I think also the suggestions you're going to share with us later for activities are sort of with this framework in mind, that second framework in mind.
Absolutely.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, this is a point that we kind of want to drive home, that there are many different ways you can go about having a MOOC camp, and it really depends on you, your contacts, and your situation, the goals of your course, all of those things. So we want to encourage you to think as broadly as possible about different possibilities in order to make this really something that's workable for you.
Definitely. Thanks for sharing that.
All right, then let's think about your audience and their needs. We mentioned this a bit earlier, but what are some important aspects to think about when you're looking for your target audience for the MOOC camp? What would you consider?
Yeah, when you're thinking about the audience for your MOOC camp and what their needs are, what are some things that you're going to consider before you implement your MOOC camp? What kinds of things will you need to think about for the group of teachers that you're going to work with, the teachers or students? Let's see. For me, one thing I think about is their language level. Looks like Abdul says their skills, that they will need to develop those 4 skills of language. Their interest from Gabriela. Zafar says their technological supports. So maybe how much technology they're used to dealing with on a regular basis and how much you're going to need to help support them. Let's see. The relevance of the MOOC to their particular context from Bruno, very good point. Internet access. Accessibility from Jessel. Really good responses, everybody. Are these the types of things you had in mind?
You know what? I can't believe that everyone can read my mind. This is amazing. But yes, you want to think about all of these sorts of things that you've already mentioned. If you're doing one of the teacher MOOCs, then you might want to consider the level of teacher education of your target audience. But if you're doing any other MOOC, you want to think about the internet access. But of course, as we mentioned before, that should not be an absolute barrier, because you can still do a MOOC even if there is no internet. You can download the materials, you can make photocopies, you can write things on a board. There are many different ways of working in a low-tech context. Digital literacy is a consideration, but it's also not a barrier. Just think about the ways that you could support your learners with the help that they might need. As some of you mentioned, their interests. Yes, what kind of things would your audience be interested in? Does it match with the MOOC that you want to use? The English level is also a consideration. And for that, I would encourage anyone who is planning to facilitate to look at the MOOC and to look at the English level. There are also supports for this as well. Some of the MOOCs have reading activities at different levels. Learners can also listen to reading activities. A lot of them are translated now. So there's also, if they're a low-level learner, it's also not an absolute barrier. Available time for the course, this is also very important because most of us are quite busy. We have jobs, maybe other commitments as well. How much time do you as a facilitator have for the course, as well as your target audience? How much time can they really commit to doing a MOOC camp? It's an important consideration too. Thank you for all your wonderful answers.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
All right, so now we're committed. We decided that we are going to do the MOOC Camp, and we're going to have an orientation session. So what do we want to accomplish in this session? Basically, first of all, we want to make sure that the people who are there understand what a MOOC is. We want them to know what we're really kind of sort of an overview of what we're planning to do during our facilitated sessions. And we also might need to give them a little bit of some pointers and tips and help with how to navigate a MOOC. For some learners, it will be the very first time they've ever heard of a MOOC, and it'll be the first time they've ever signed up for one. So just giving them some help about how to sign up, how to post something on the discussion board can be really, really helpful. And it'll help them get over any anxiety they have for actually doing a MOOC. Again, with that in mind, you might have some participants who they're a bit scared, like we all are when we start something new. So you want to be there to also encourage them and let them know that you're going to be there to help them and support them with any sort of difficulties they might have. And not only you, but maybe your co-facilitators and other people in the group are there to also lend a hand and provide support. Another thing you might want to do is to go over your MOOC Camp rules. And this is not something where we're thinking about giving them really strict rules as a really severe, mean teacher, but just kind of letting them know about your attendance expectations, letting them know if you have any other sorts of, firm rules about how they should behave in the class. This should be taken care of in the orientation session.
Great. Yeah, and
activities, sure, and icebreakers, I see that. Yeah, those are also really great ideas because you want your participants to start to get to know each other a little bit and to start to feel comfortable with one another.
Definitely. Rena also says that they have a MOOC 101, which is sort of a step-by-step process. How do you enroll in the MOOC so you can bring everyone together? Maybe they haven't ever taken a MOOC before. You can bring them together and go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the steps. Enroll in the MOOC, sign up, look at all the different aspects, that kind of thing. That's a great idea. Great idea.
Absolutely. And I saw someone said that rules are important because some people take MOOCs for granted. You know your contacts better than I do. So yeah, if that's true, if you need to have some stronger, more firm rules, then you know what to do. You know what you need to explain to them. It's a good point.
Great.
All right, so after the orientation session, we're going to go and we're going to start our facilitated sessions. We want to give you some ideas about different ways that you might organize your facilitated sessions. And again, keep in mind there are a lot of options and different ways to do this. So one of the first ones we have is the seminar or discussion format. We have then what we call an enrichment format. We have a project-based format, and then we have a blended format that can blend any of these other formats. Now, don't worry, because we're going to go through each one of these and give you a bit more of an explanation about what we really mean with these different models.
Sounds good.
All right, so the first one, the seminar or discussion format. More or less, what we're thinking is that you use some of the materials from the MOOC, and then you create some sort of discussion activities around those materials. This could be some questions that you make related to a video. It could be a debate that you organize. It could be a role play that you organize. But in some way, you are facilitating some kind of discussion that is related to the actual materials that you have in the MOOC.
All right, let's take a look at an example.
All right, here you can see a video. This is from the Media Literacy MOOC. So I used this video in one of my own sessions, and what I did was I just went over the video and I made some questions for them. Of course, sometimes we needed to talk about vocabulary and other aspects of the reading, but more or less, the main point of this was to have a discussion about this video.
Great, so this is taking content that's directly in the MOOC and using it as a main key point of the discussion or seminar format. So this is where you would take a content directly from the MOOC and use it in your MOOC camp to facilitate a discussion. Great idea.
Yes, and to be quite honest, it's one of the ways that it's easiest to set up. You have the material there. you sometimes just need to add a little bit to it, and then you can use that for your facilitated sessions.
That's a great point. We're going to talk about a couple of other ways to format your MOOC facilitated sessions of your MOOC Camp. But this one is a really good way and a pretty straightforward and simple way where you can quickly implement something like this as part of your MOOC Camp. So you just take content directly from the MOOC and have a discussion about it. Or maybe several pieces of content, and over the hour or 2 hours where you meet, you discuss that content. So this is a really great and effective way, especially if you're new to doing MOOC camps, that will really help your participants.
All right, let's go on to the next format, the enrichment format. So this is actually, you can think of this as being somewhat similar to the discussion formats, because you can, in effect, also have discussions in this format. But the idea here, what is a little bit different, is that you're not necessarily taking the materials and the content from the MOOC to create your session. So in other words, you might think about different things. You might make your own materials that are related to the content, but a little bit different. You could personalize it for your own learning environments, or personalize it for your students' level. Or you might think about doing something like inviting some guest speakers to come to your sessions and to talk about their experience. Now, for the guest speakers, you want to think about how that might actually relate to the MOOC. So, for instance, if you're focusing on business and entrepreneurship, then you would probably invite people who have some sort of expertise or experience with business and entrepreneurship in your context.
Let's take a look at the next slide and we can see some of those examples there. Yeah, like you said here, the English for Business and Entrepreneurship MOOC, if you're using that one, you could invite a person, a local business owner, entrepreneur. Great.
Right, and you know, you can think broadly about this, like who in your local community would be a good person to invite. It might be somebody very close to you that you work with, one of your colleagues, for instance. For the STEM MOOC, you might try to find someone who has an expertise in science, maybe a science teacher or a scientist in your local community. For the content-based instruction MOOC, you might bring in someone who has actually been using content-based instruction to talk about their experiences with you.
Great idea. Yeah. Or for the one that's coming up, the young learners, maybe there's a teacher in your building who has more experience with young learners and might have some ideas for engaging young learners in English. Even if they're not an English speaker, Jimalee, could you still invite them to a class like this or to a facilitated session like this?
Yes, this is a good point. And the answer is absolutely. Absolutely. If they have some sort of experience that's related to your MOOC, why not bring them in? Because, you know, in my experience, I found that it was very motivational for my participants to see people in the local community who are involved with some of these different sorts of topics. So yeah, it shouldn't be a barrier if they don't speak English. If they speak English, great. If they don't, that's okay too. You can have translators or other people who will assist. Maybe some of your participants want to practice their translating abilities. So yeah, don't say no to someone who doesn't necessarily speak English.
Great, and they could have, the participants can maybe have a chance to discuss what they learned from the speaker in English, if that's the case. But yeah, it would be great if possible for that person to speak English, but if not, that's okay. You can have other supplemental activities as well.
Absolutely.
Great, thanks, Jimalee.
All right, so then, all right, let's think about some other things we could do with the enrichment format. Okay, more or less, this is pretty open to whatever you have in your imagination and your own experience. If you have already been a teacher or a facilitator, you might have a lot of really good ideas about how you taught something or facilitated something, some different activities that you've done. So you can create any other extra activities that you think are appropriate that relate to your particular MOOC participants.
Great. Yeah, and I would love to hear from our participants, what other activities do you think might be good to do during your MOOC Camp session? So like we mentioned, in the enrichment format, you're kind of building off of the ideas in the MOOC and adding other activities that are related to the idea to enhance the teacher's or learner's understanding of the concept. So let's see, Shabir says games, great. Sharing. What other activities would be good to include in this type of format in enrichment? Interviews and dialogues, role plays from Abdul, collaborative activities from Rosmin, role plays from Miguel, videos, maybe a video about the same topic, but it's not part of the MOOC content. Role play, excellent, great ideas, everyone. Did you have anything else to add on that one, Jimalee, for other ideas? I feel like they came up with a lot of great activities there.
Absolutely, and I saw a lot of creative and fun in there. Fun is an important word. Yeah, ultimately, you want your participants to be engaged in what they're doing. So whatever kinds of activities you think is going to be enriching and engaging for them, and also fun, those are the kinds of things you want to create for them. Role plays, interviews, dialogues, discussions, all of these things are great ideas. Presentations, icebreakers, yes. Anything that you see that's going to be suitable, that's somewhat related to the MOOC, that's great. And this can work sometimes if your MOOC participants are doing all of the MOOC content by themselves every week. You don't want them to come in and then you repeat the same thing with them that they've already done. So this enrichment activity and ideas is a way of bringing something else in, something that's related, but something that's also new, creative, and fun.
Great.
Posters, yeah, that's another idea. You can have them make posters. And this is also something that you can do with project-based format, is the posters. So we're going to talk a little bit about project-based. So what do we really mean about project-based formats? All right, more or less, the idea is that your participants will create some sort of project over the course of the MOOC. Now, this is going to depend on your participants and the actual MOOC, and you're going to need to consider how much time they would have to reasonably carry out a project. If you want to do a project, I suggest that you tell the participants from the very beginning so that they have time over the course to create their project and then later, hopefully, to present it to everyone at the end. Project, this is a very, very broad idea, a very broad kind of concept. So it really can be anything that they're working on that's sort of related to the MOOC, but kind of outside of the MOOC. For instance, if they're doing the grammar, teaching grammar creatively, you might ask the teachers to try some of the activities and the new things that they're learning from the MOOC. They could make some notes about it. And then later, they might actually take some of those ideas and create their own materials, or maybe they'll find ways to adapt the materials in their current textbooks based on the ideas that they've learned. And then you could ask all the teachers in that MOOC maybe to come together, and they could put all of their different ideas, their different sorts of materials that they've created together, and make a booklet that you could share, that the teachers in that context could share with each other, so that they would gain more ideas and different ways of using what they learned from the MOOC. Now, this is just sort of one idea. Again, I encourage you, if you want to do a project, to think broadly. Think about how it's possible for your participants and something that might actually really enrich their lives as well.
Great, yeah, this is a way, Noreen is mentioning cascading or cascading new knowledge. In this example of a project, a group project for the teachers who are taking the teaching grammar communicatively MOOC could make this little booklet that they could share with others, and then that knowledge could be shared with others and others and others. So really great idea. Let's take a look at one more example.
Okay, so for the STEM MOOC, there's a lot to do in this MOOC with the environment. So if you are thinking about the environment and some of the issues, the environmental issues in your context, you might start by asking your participants to do some research on a particular sort of environmental issue, and then create some sort of project around that issue. For instance, they might research that issue, and then they might go to a certain agency Maybe they'll volunteer at the agency. Maybe they'll offer to help the agency to help them create a website or a brochure. They might even go to schools and talk about the issue and talk about how people can get involved and sort of help and make some change related to that issue. And then later, again, at the end, you might have your participants come together and present their different projects. Some of you were mentioning before posters. And yes, posters are a very big thing in education and conferences and all these sorts of important things that we do in our lives. So you might ask them to create a poster as well. And then that way they can showcase their projects at the end to everyone. The important thing is that I would encourage the people to do a project that is meaningful to them. There's no sense in them just doing a project just to do it. It should be something that they care about and that they are interested in doing, and also something that hopefully will promote their own learning so that they're really gaining something from the MOOC and their project.
Wonderful. Yeah, Rena says that she did a STEM MOOC and they had a tree planting and cleanup drive as part of the STEM MOOC. Great idea.
I love that. I think that's great because then we're taking learning and we're not just like keeping it for ourselves. We're doing something, we're having action. You're doing something that has impact and that can really make a change. Not just in those trees, not just for those trees, but for the world, for the future, for the people who are involved in these projects.
Definitely.
Although those trees are important, of course.
Yes. Yeah, and I really like the project-based format idea because a lot of times for the MOOCs, in order to receive your digital badge or your certificate of completion, you only need to complete quizzes. That's the only major requirement. So having projects as part of your MOOC camp can really be a great way to enhance learners' engagement with the content and to help them develop those wonderful critical thinking skills and to really be able to apply their new knowledge. So great.
Yeah, definitely. I encourage a lot of you to go ahead and think about trying this and think about how you're going to organize projects for your MOOC participants. And then please let us know what the experience was like and what you did with these projects.
Definitely. Yeah, we will be sharing this recording and the related slides on our American English webinar Ning, and we also have a discussion there, so we want to hear more about your ideas on that discussion and as we continue for the last couple of minutes of this presentation.
All right, so let's go on to the next slide then. The point of this is just to help you understand that you could blend any of these formats. So there's no strict rule that says if you're doing the discussion format that you can't also do a project. It's up to you to do what you think is going to be the best for your context. So blend what is going to work best for you and your learners. All right, then we just want to let you know that you are basically a guide. You're there to support and help the people who are working through the MOOC. You don't have to think of yourself as being, like I said, a really strong, mean, and strict teacher. You're a helper. And in your sessions, you really want to try to encourage everyone to take part. Give them chances to practice their English skills, their digital literacy skills, as well as learning about the content of the MOOC. So make sure you try to have some different interactional patterns in your sessions. Aim to have pair work, group work, whole class work, and also some individual work as well. All right, we're going to give you a few more tips that we think are important for your facilitated sessions. So the first one is that you should take attendance, especially if you are planning to give some sort of certificate for people who attended your MOOC Camp sessions. So make sure you take attendance, make sure you know who's there and who's coming. Again, make sure you try to find ways to involve all the participants. You want to feel like this is a place where they really have the opportunity to learn in a safe environment. You want to try to, of course, help them with their digital skills. And you want to make sure that you have a way that they can communicate with each other outside of the facilitated sessions. So try to set up some sort of Facebook group or WhatsApp group or, I don't know, Twitter or email, whatever works best in your context.
Sounds good. And then what do we do at the end of our MOOC camp?
Okay, so all good things come to an end, right? So at the end of the MOOC camp, what are we going to do? We're going to celebrate. We're going to celebrate the end of the MOOC camp because we've achieved something, right? So it's always good to celebrate that. So at the end of the MOOC camp, you're going to also want to get feedback. Find out from your participants what worked well, what they enjoyed, what was helpful for them, and maybe also get some ideas about what they want to do in the future in terms of MOOC camps. What topics are they interested in? What do they want to learn? And also, you know, maybe be open to some things that they felt didn't work as well in the MOOC camp so that you could adjust for the next time. Of course, you want to have some kind of ceremony. You want to show the participants that they have achieved something, that you're proud of them, and have a little celebration. In that ceremony, you will potentially give them certificates. When I did MOOC camps, what I did is I made the certificates myself. So this was not coming from the MOOC provider, but these were ones that I made that said that they completed the MOOC camp. Not that they completed the MOOC itself, but they came to my MOOC camp and they participated and they finished. I think I made them, I required that they did 80% to get a certificate. And that's how I organized that. Now, if they wanted to do all the online work too, and they got a certificate from the MOOC provider, that was also great. But I couldn't, I didn't have any control over that. At this time too, you're going to start preparing for your next MOOC camp. So hopefully you had a great experience and you want to do it again. So you want to start thinking about what you're going to do for the next camp. You might also find some of your participants who were particularly active and engaged in the MOOC camp and ask them to help you. Try to recruit some of them. You might ask them to do their own MOOC camps, or you might ask them to come and co-host with you so that they become more comfortable and familiar with what they're doing in the MOOC camp. And then later, maybe they'll go on and do their own MOOC camps as well. So we're spreading the MOOC camps around the world.
Great.
All right, this is just a few references. And finally, a thank you. I'm so happy that so many of you were here. I really, really loved your contributions. You had so many great ideas, and it's really great for me to see what some of your ideas are and some of the things that you're actually doing with the MOOCs. It's really helpful. I really appreciate your attendance, and I wish you all the best with your future MOOCs and MOOC camps.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I wanted to quickly address one question when Rosmin asked what should be the duration of the MOOC camp, and I think that really depends on you and your context. The American English eTeacher facilitated MOOCs are about 5 weeks long, so you might want to hold a session before it starts, one time each week when it happens, and then at the end, so maybe 7 weeks or so. So that's up to you, but that might be sort of a ballpark or sort of average figure. But anyhow, thank you so much, everyone, for your wonderful participation today. And thank you so much, Jimalee, for sharing all of these great and useful tips for us as we begin thinking about how to engage our teachers in MOOCs and engage them in MOOC camps. So thank you so much.
You guys rock too. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
For guiding us.
Yes, and of course, we hope that you continue to learn and share participants about MOOCs and MOOC camps. As we mentioned, we are sharing this recording and the slides and our brand new MOOC Camp Facilitation Guide on our American English NING, AmericanEnglishWebinars.com. And that's also where you can find a discussion related to today's topic, where we hope to see lots of you sharing your ideas for how you have facilitated MOOC camps and sharing your questions and concerns as well if this is your first time taking a MOOC or facilitating a MOOC camp. So thanks again, everyone, for being here today. And we look forward to seeing you in the future when we begin our next American English Live series, which will begin on May 1st. So thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you and goodbye. Thank you.